Oakley McFerrin, the intern, Brendan Martin, executive producer in Ocala, Florida, Jordan Davis Hill.
Happy holidays.
Oh man, Merry Christmas, everybody. It's here. It's game on. Got a lot to cover today. We ready?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you, we've got Dudley Dawson inside Arkansas right now, up in Fayetteville, talking about their new coach Ryan Silverfield. Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville. Jacques Doucet in Baton Rouge, WAFB Channel 9. Man, the calculations, guys, $162 million LSU is paying coaches, either current or not to coach, like Brian Kelly and Ed Orgeron. So it's $162 million. That's it's a lot of money. So you better start winning.
I want that kind of grace in my next job.
Oh, yeah, really. In our next lives, we come back. That's exactly right. Okay, do us a favor. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Share us and like us and subscribe. You'll automatically be notified every time we go live on this channel. We got a bunch of shows, and it's easy. Tap and watch. So, look, let's get started. Jordan Davis Hill, one of the best out there, and the intern Oakley McFerrin at Auburn. Jordan, we talked in the pre-show. I picked Georgia and Alabama to play. I thought Alabama will win the regular season match. I think Georgia wins the championship. I'm standing by it. Your thoughts about the way Georgia closed the season and how motivated with the playoff now is the championship game just something, a cursory, like, kind of curtsy and we got to get through this thing, but we're really looking at the playoff. How do you see that now?
Well, I'll say too, Rob, I had Georgia, Alabama before the start of the season. So
you and me both did.
We did a good job on that. Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing when you look at this, you talk to Kirby Smart and listen to him. He wants this SEC championship. He talked about it after the Georgia Tech game, where at the time it was unclear if Georgia was going to be in it. They needed either Texas to beat Texas A&M or Auburn to beat Alabama, and Kirby basically threw up his hands and was like, do we just not care about the SEC championship anymore? Why, when I was growing up, this was the biggest deal in the world. And I think it's a situation where they take this really seriously. And, I think that the players within this program, they care about, some of the stuff they have on the walls in the program. They've got, that honor the teams that have won the SEC. It's a way, it's a distinction that you can have among the really good Georgia teams. So I think they take this seriously. I know that, Kirby wants to play this game, but I think Georgia really could have benefited from not playing this game, mainly because Drew Bobo's hurt. The center hurt his foot against Georgia Tech. I don't think he's going to play, and I think it's a stretch that we see him again this year. They're going to have to figure out what they're doing at center. It was a bit of a struggle in the second half against Georgia Tech. But situation where, hey, the game popped up for Georgia. They know they got to play it, so they might as well go out there and try to win it.
Well, it's like Nick Saban said when he got to LSU in 2000. And remember, he came from Michigan State. He'd had one 10-win season. The rest of them were 6 and 5s. And he said the biggest deal in that locker room was getting to the Sugar Bowl. And I'm glad Kirby is saying what he's saying about the SEC championship game, because it is a big deal to win an SEC championship. And remember, Georgia went from 82 to 02, 20 years without winning one. And then was it Quincy Carter in 02 that broke that, or DJ Shockley?
No, that would have been David Green.
I'm sorry, David Green.
Put some respect on the lefty.
Oh, the David Green, that's right, who was a 4-year starter who won more games in those 4 years. Yeah, pretty strong. Oakley, jump in here with Jordan Davis Hill, 247 Sports, covering the soon-to-be, my prediction, SEC champions. That's a big deal. I'm glad he said that.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the playoff, maybe the SEC championship and these conference championships might have lost a little bit of their juice, but it's still always going to be the SEC championship and something you want under your belt. You get bragging rights 365 over every fan base in the SEC, so it's obviously something you're going to care about, especially when it's a rivalry game like Alabama and Georgia is. But I wanted your take on maybe some commits to watch for Georgia, maybe in terms of they all could flip or might be flipped from y'all.
Yeah, honestly, the biggest news of the week was Jared Curtis flipping to Vanderbilt on Tuesday. As far as today, I think the biggest domino that we've seen has already fallen in favor of Georgia. Tyreek Jemison, he's an interior offensive lineman from Paulding County. He was a guy that had been committed to Kentucky. He backed off that commitment a few weeks ago, and it came down to Georgia and LSU. Was looking like Georgia will miss, the Lane Kiffin situation and made LSU a player in it. But he commits to Georgia. Just before we started recording, Caden Harris, a cornerback, officially signed with Georgia. He's another guy that Vanderbilt really, really wanted, and he was committed to Vanderbilt several months ago before he flipped to Georgia. So honestly, with the Jared Curtis thing taken care of now, that kind of looked like that was going to be the conversation to have on signing day for Georgia. Now that Jemison is signed, I'm sure they're going to talk to a few other guys, but knock on wood, I'll probably jinx it by saying this, but I think it's going to be a relatively calm signing day from here on out for Georgia.
Rob, I think you're muted, bud.
We don't really know what a national letter of intent means anymore. I mean, because kids sign on signing day, next week they could be at another school, but certain cultures, if you, I guess you have to talk to them about that. So my question about Georgia, matching up against Alabama, strengths, weaknesses, where does Georgia have the edge? Where does Alabama have the edge?
I think the biggest thing for me is what I hit on a few minutes ago is figuring out this offensive line and if it can gel with Malachi Tolliver. It sounds like they have worked some other guys at center this week, just in case. I still expect it'll be Malachi Tolliver who played when Drew Bobo got hurt. But a big part of Georgia having a chance of winning that game in September was the way they ran the ball. Did a fantastic job of being able to run on Alabama. Chauncey Bowens had a fantastic game and kind of led that charge. But if you look at the Georgia Tech game from Friday, it was a pretty stark difference in how they ran the ball when Drew Bobo was out there and when Malachi Tolliver was out there. Now, I think it's kind of simplifying things to say that's the only reason Georgia didn't run the ball as well in the second half. I think Tech made some adjustments, but fourth quarter of that game, Georgia averaged 1.2 yards per carry, and that's just not a recipe to win if you're Georgia looking at this game again, because the run game was such a big part of the conversation back in September. The other matchup I'm really interested in watching, Georgia's secondary, and I thought they did a pretty good job of containing Alabama's receivers the first time around. And this is a secondary that's got a lot more confidence now. This is a secondary that's had guys, they've got redshirt freshman Ellis Robinson playing quite a bit, sophomore DeMello Jones playing quite a bit. Those were still some unproven guys when this game was played back in week 5. I think they've got a little bit of confidence. Ellis made a fantastic interception in that Georgia Tech game. Let's see what they're able to do, especially there's a lot of questions about the Alabama situation with Ryan Williams. He didn't have a target in that game against Auburn, and that's just so unexpected. So pay attention to the receivers going up against Georgia's secondary. I want to see what that battle winds up looking like.
Oh, you're friends with Isaiah Horton. Y'all play high school football together. I mean, they're talking about calling it Jordan Horton Stadium.
Yeah, scoring 3 touchdowns on us was definitely put himself up there with the Iron Bowl legends for sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, when you bring in guys, Jordan, in the transfer portal, I want your thoughts on Noah Thomas and Zachariah Branch. How would you grade them this year? Did they elevate the receiver room?
100%. I mean, I would give Zach Branch an A+. I don't know that you could ask any more from him, and I'd give Noah probably a B+. And the thing with Noah, he has been so huge since Colby Young got hurt. They're both big receivers. I think Noah is like 6'5", and Colby had been kind of that reliable go-to guy. I think he was the guy, if it was crunch time, hey, we're going to get him the ball. He got hurt against Ole Miss, and Zach Branch kind of became that go-to guy instead. But Noah Thomas has done a really good job, been very productive, especially near the red zone, in the red zone. They've gotten their money's worth, I think, when it comes to receiver. They knew, we talked about it, throughout the offseason, how much they emphasized and how much they knew they had to flip that receiver room, play better than they did in 24. They've done it, and those 2 transfers are a huge reason why.
Well, the tight end room at Georgia, Lawson Lucky, Oscar Delp, all these guys. Why does Georgia do such a good job with the tight ends, and all these other schools say they're going to throw to the tight end? They hardly ever do.
I think it helps when you got Brock Bowers in the NFL and you can point to him and say, do you want to be like him? Now, being like Brock Bowers, there are very few people who are able to do that. But I think that helps. They've got a track record at this point, and they do a very similar job with inside linebacker, where every recruiting cycle, I can't help but go, all right, like they can't really sign that many guys. Look at who's already in the room. They do a good job of getting those guys to buy in and say, look, we know you want to play. We're going to give you the opportunity to play if you earn it. But even if you are not playing, work while you wait. It will do you a lot of good. I always bring up the example of Channing Tindall, who never started at Georgia, but rotated in quite regularly. I think he was still like a third-round pick to the Miami Dolphins. They understand you can come to Georgia, you can get developed. The plan is to get on the field and play quite a bit, but even if you're playing as a backup, as a reserve, it can still lead to a big opportunity when you're done playing in college.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. I mean, there's a few Georgia. It's like Georgia with tight ends, Ohio State with receivers. If everybody says they're going to throw their tight ends, not everybody gets a 5-star every tight end cycle like Georgia does. They're in the mix for a top 3 tight end every year. And, you point to Brock Bowers, then you look at Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky. They're the exact same build. They move a similar way. Maybe not quite as talented, but when you've got that type of tight end talent, it's just hard not to use it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Jordan, and you look at recruiting right now, I'm seeing Georgia's class. They've been 1 or 2 or 3 with Kirby for a long time. Dave Bartu's got him rated the number 1 defensive coordinator in the country the last 15 years. Do you foresee Schumann getting a head coaching job, Glenn Schumann?
I'm fascinated to watch this cycle to see how it plays out. Because to me, if he doesn't jump this cycle, then he really is waiting for something specific, or he's happy being a defensive coordinator. And there's plenty of guys who have done that. But I watched jobs like South Florida, Memphis, just see if he kicks the tires, if his name comes up. I really haven't seen his name mentioned yet with any of those jobs. Tulane as well. I think if he were to jump, if he wants to be a head coach, to me, this is the time to do it. This is such a crazy market that, it's supply and demand. That there's going to be opportunities. Not everybody can hire a proven head coach, a guy that's a sitting head coach elsewhere. This seems like the offseason to jump if you're Glenn Schumann, if you want to be a head coach.
Yeah. All right, curveball here. I got to ask you, you think Vanderbilt will make the college football playoff when all the dust settles? And do they deserve it?
It's hard. It's hard for me to say if they deserve it, but I don't think they will. I think that Texas loss is just going to be too much. But I mean, I do hate it for Vanderbilt because 10-2 season, fantastic season, but I just think there's too many players right there in the mix. I mean, I think the Notre Dame and Miami of it all is going to kind of hurt Vanderbilt when it comes down to it. They've got a good case. So I'm not going to sit here and say they don't, but I just think there's too many teams right there I think the head-to-head loss with Texas, as much as the committee has really complicated explaining how they look at head-to-head and how they measure it, I think that has to carry some weight because otherwise we are going to have a mess when it comes to non-conference scheduling because if the committee says, yeah, we don't really care about that, well, then the teams aren't going to care about it either.
Yeah, and I think Texas is getting a lot of mileage out of the 14-7 loss in week 1 or 0, whatever you call it, at Ohio State. So for your Saturday matchup, give me a score, Georgia versus Alabama. Just a prediction, a swag.
I'm going Alabama 27-20. I have seen this movie too many times before. I had picked Alabama to win during the summer. And then the week of the game back in September, I said, there's just something I got to flip this pick. And Alabama proved me wrong. And I said, I'm not picking Georgia again until they beat Alabama. In that matchup, I am not picking Georgia until Alabama does it. The loss of Drew Bobo, though, significant. They have got to get much better play out of Malachi Tolliver or whoever plays in Drew Bobo's place. I think it's going to be competitive, but I got Alabama 27-20. And fascinating to see if that's how it plays out. Yeah. Just what happens with Georgia, where they wind up in the playoff seeding.
All right, let people know how they can follow you. And you got a great podcast, Junkyard Dog. Everybody needs to be watching this thing. And also, we'll be talking some basketball soon. SEC basketball, and it's kind of like an eclipse right now. It's like, where do we find a way to squeeze it in? But if you got anything to add on that before you go, please do.
Yeah, dogs247.com. We are busy with live updates. I think Georgia's got about 14 kids already signed this morning. On Twitter at Jordan Davis Hill, on Twitter at Dogs247. Junkyard Dogcast is the name of the podcast. We're going to have a big show Thursday afternoon. Several of the signees from Georgia's 2026 class are going to pop on. It's one of my favorite episodes we do of the entire season. And just mentioned Georgia basketball. They hit triple digits at Florida State last night. Very impressive win. They are averaging something like 99.9 points per game. They've been fun to watch. Now, the competition level hasn't been fierce, but I like what they've shown so far this year.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, great stuff as always, and thank you. We'll see you next week.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Guys, Oak, we're going to bring in Jacques Doucet in just a minute from Baton Rouge. Man, watching Alabama, somebody always seems to step up late for them. They start sniffing a championship. They're kind of like a German shepherd or a bomb-sniffing dog, aren't they? They're going to find it.
Yeah. I mean, that's how the Alabama culture has been. You no matter what team you're playing, how bad you've played that game, you're going to find a way to win. And that's really been for their whole dynasty, been what they've pushed, their culture. They do a fourth quarter program. Kalen DeBoer carried that over from Nick Saban, and it's a brutal summer program, and it seems to pay off every year.
Well, it does. And, and before Jacques goes on here, you talk about culture. And to me, a culture is we always finish. We outwork everybody. We outstudy everybody. You're a student in college. There's just things that you have to do. And if you miss one workout or you don't do one thing that's part of the equation, it usually bites you on the ass, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, what the old saying is hard work builds confidence. And the most confident team in the fourth quarter ends up winning. And, some teams are like, we're not losing this game. They just find a way to win. Some teams are kind of doubting themselves in the fourth quarter, and Alabama is not one of those teams.
Yes. Find excuses to win, like Jacques Doucet, two-time Louisiana Sportscaster of the Year down in Baton Rouge. Jacques, you've been rather busy lately, but at least you didn't have to be Marty Smith, locked as a hostage in the Ole Miss football complex. Like day 3, when is it going to be over? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Hell's about to freeze over. I finally found a girlfriend like in the last 6-7 months. And every time I tell her, hey, look, it's going to settle down and everything, and we'll have some time this week. Nope. So it has been this probably season I've ever covered. And just one domino after another. Certainly on Monday, the introduction of Lane Kiffin as LSU's new head coach. A big coup for LSU. I mean, I don't know how many games he's going to win, but in terms of LSU identifying a target, finding one target as their head coach and getting him hired and getting him in here, that's happened. And certainly a press conference that a lot of people were watching and sometimes maybe hate watching. They used to say that some people would hate watch Fox News or CNN or Don Lemon or whatever the case may be. I think there were some Ole Miss fans hate watching that press conference, and certainly some LSU fans very excited about landing Lane Kiffin. But there's no doubt that it's a bit messy, and I'm not an Ole Miss lover or Ole Miss hater, but I believe in teamwork and sports and doing things together. And because of the calendar and the way it's structured, and that Lane Kiffin, after all these years of being a head coach, finally was the head coach of a team heading to a playoff and walked away from it. And I think he obviously did his best to remain the head coach, but I don't know how that would work. I don't know how you wear a purple shirt around LSU Monday, Tuesday, signing day, and then head on back to Oxford and put your red shirt on and coach a team. There's no way that it could have worked. I think if you put the shoe on the other foot and told LSU fans that, Lane Kiffin was bringing LSU to a playoff, and he's going to Alabama now, but he wants to coach LSU in the playoffs, I don't think they would go for that. So, that's just a lot of questions about the staff. Rob, is Frank Wilson the interim head coach at the moment to lead the team in the bowl game? Is he going to stay? Is Corey Raymond the defensive backs coach and the architect of DBU? Is he going to stay? Blake Baker, the LSU defensive coordinator, he is a prime candidate to be the head coach at Tulane. Does he get that job? Or does he stay? Does LSU give him enough money that he doesn't want to become a head coach at the moment and stay? He's linked to Kevin Peoples, the ends coach, Jake Olson, the safeties coach who came with him from Missouri. Coach O, he wants to come back and coach with Lane if he doesn't get the Tulane head coaching job. Coach O's being linked to the Tulane job. I don't think he's a candidate, or I wouldn't expect him to be hired. I think that the odds are against that. But certainly, if he isn't hired by Tulane, he is certainly open to coming back and working for Lane Kiffin at LSU, as LSU, I think, isn't done paying Ed Ogeron, who was the head coach at LSU, by the way, till December the 15th. Of this month coming up. So how's that? That's not chaotic, is it?
No, not at all. Oakley, jump in here with Jacques Doucet. And you are the mobile reporter today. This is awesome, driving through town, and this is working out great. Come on, Oak.
Yeah, so we all saw Lane Kiffin say to the Ole Miss coaching staff, if you have a spot if you hop on this plane, but if not, your spot's not going to be guaranteed. And Charlie Weiss was on that plane, but now is going back to coach Ole Miss in the college football playoff. So is he still locked in for the LSU offensive coordinator, or is that up in the air right now?
I think he's still locked in. I mean, I got the statement like everybody else did yesterday that Lane Kiffin said that he could coach Ole Miss in the playoff and, try to give them the best chance to win. And, I guess Lane Kiffin, I did a little Zoom with Paul Feinbaum yesterday. I think, trying to think of how the way Feinbaum worded it, I think he said he was the most famous person in college football, biggest celebrity or whatever. So when Lane Kiffin walks around, everyone knows who he is. Charlie Weiss Jr., maybe not as much. So, but still, there's the question of, hey, LSU and Ole Miss, you're playing each other every year. Do you want an LSU assistant coach in the building gathering all the war secrets to when you play next year? Of course, the rosters could flip a lot and all that, but yeah, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I know, I hadn't heard any differently. But I think Charlie Weiss is going to be LSU's offensive coordinator. There's a lot of talk that basically all of LSU's offensive staff may be out the door. Your Brad Davises, the offensive line coach, guys like that. Cortez Hankton, the wide receivers coach. They may all be gone. And then your strength and conditioning guys, they've been under a lot of fire since Tommy Moffitt left and is now doing well at Texas A&M. So those are some of the questions we have about the coaching staff and who's staying and who's going and all that. But I think there's still a lot up in the air that needs to be decided here in the next 48 hours now that it's signing day. I think LSU has cut loose some guys that they think weren't good enough to play. Some other guys they've been able to flip. My friend Mike Scarborough at TigerBait.com, Shay Dixon, those guys. Those are the hardcore recruiting guys. They could talk about all the recruits a lot better than I could. But needless to say, it's a crazy time in terms of the future of LSU football.
And curiously, how are y'all going to cover at Channel 9 National Signing Date? It's almost a non-event now because they can sign with you, and what does that mean anymore?
Yeah, well, we do have a lot of. I mean, I probably got a list. John Eads is really our prep guy for the most part, and he did a fabulous job of kind of collecting the list. I think we got, 12, 15 signings locally. A lot of kids obviously not going to LSU, going to different schools, and so we'll be out all day covering different signings of local high school kids moving on to the next level. Typically the LSU coach would have a press conference to recap the signing class and all that, but I'm not sure that's going to happen today. He may get too many questions about, who's on his staff and some other things maybe he's not ready to answer at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But we got plenty to get out and shoot today, I'll tell you that. And then, Southern, the Jaguars across town, they just hired Marshall Faulk as their head coach. So we had 2 head coaches in Baton Rouge introduced on Monday. I don't think that's ever happened before.
Oakley, jump back in here. It is so different. Normally we would be watching the faxes and just the stuff coming across the screen. Oakley, you are paying attention to recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, so I saw a statistic this morning: 95% of recruits have been committed or are already committed, which is the most that has been up to this point. And I think recruits now are getting bonuses for being committed a few months prior, and coaching staffs are trying to get their recruits locked in maybe in the summer because that's when the official visit season got moved to. And you see a lot of recruitments getting shut down earlier, which kind of led to National Signing Day not really being as excited as we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and that's the calendar. I don't know if the horse is out of the barn and that they could ever get it back, but that's a problem with the calendar. Signing Day used to be the first Wednesday in February.
Yeah.
And the first people I thought of were the coaches' wives, like a few years back. Like, are you ever off? Does this ever end? Because the first signing day was like December 20th, right before Christmas. And really there is no signing day. It's signing day. Not a whole lot of kids are going to wait after today to sign. So many of them are skipping their prom and all that stuff to enroll early and get a jump. So I like what in spring ball, I like what Saban said in terms of it'd be nice to do get rid of spring football, do like an OTA period in May, and then come back in August and then do your fall camp. That would be good in my opinion. And as a local sportscaster, we have so much to cover in the month of March, between basketball, the start of baseball, softball, track and field and all that. When you throw spring football in there too, it's challenging. I would much rather it be in May, let it warm up a bit and do it that way. And then, just imagine being a New Orleans Saints fan. And, Sean Payton's your head coach and they're 13-3 and going to the playoffs. And it's like, well, Payton's not going to coach the team because he's going to become the new head coach of the Denver Broncos or Dallas Cowboys or something. I mean, it's crazy. It'd be nice to just let these guys be able to coach the entire season with their teams. And then when the season wraps up, then we start the coaching carousel. But I don't know if we can ever get to that place.
I talked with the coach. He called me Monday night and said a potential problem is kids not getting paid for the conference championship games and bowl games and sitting out. I figured their contract covered everything. What do you know about that?
That's a good question, Rob. I don't really know. I'll be interviewing Gordon McKernan later this week, tomorrow, I think, and he's certainly one of the big players in NIL here, injury attorney here, blockbuster attorney. I may have to ask him about that. I've never really seen these contracts and what's expected of these kids, and it used to be you were supposed to exchange something for the money. You were supposed to do some Instagram posts. Do something. It wasn't supposed to be pay per play, and obviously that's what it's all do now. So
one more before you go. Have you had a chance? I'm seriously asking this, to sit down with the governor of Louisiana since his comments. I mean, I know he's got a future, whether it's in politics or entertainment. If they do, what was it? Bobby Boucher, Frank Duffy, who's on this show, Mr. LSU Tiger. Frank 2 weeks ago was like 100% guarantee Kiffin's coming. He goes, I put my reputation as an unpaid journalist on the line. He was at a hunting camp in Louisiana, opening weekend of duck season, and he did the show from there with a bunch of y'all's big donors down there. It's been a wild time, but a lot of people want to know about the governor.
Well, I think he has made a comeback, so to speak. I think Lane Kiffin, during his introductory press conference, mentioned the governor several times and in a positive light. Said we had a good conversation and that kind of thing. And so, LSU landed their coach with the contract. So I think the governor is in decent graces. He's kind of gone away in terms of going out and making big, outlandish statements about LSU football. And look, I'm a Cajun from his neck of the woods, so I don't want to make fun of the way people talk and all that stuff. But
I love him. You know what he said? He said what people really believe. We all know that. You know that. I know it. He said the truth. Yeah. And you know me, I love Louisiana. I love that whole. We got 2 guys in our hunting club from Lake Charles. I love it. And one more thing that really gets me, that the number of players, Jacques, that came out that played at LSU and said there is nothing like a Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. They really came out in force to show their support. And not every school's former players, Oak, are coming out and being on their side. That's a big damn deal.
Yeah, there's a few programs out there, and we all know who they are, where no matter what their record is, no matter what game it is, night game, it's going to be sold out. Players going to be back, fans going to be involved, and that really, I think that was one of the reasons Lane Kiffin left a program like Ole Miss, because Ole Miss is not there, LSU is. So Lane Kiffin wanted the coach for one of those upper echelon teams.
Well, and I will say this, Ole Miss is never going to be the same. And I don't mean in a bad way. When Kiffin and Auburn were playing footsie back in 22, the Grove Collective exploded, and it's now over 15,000 members. So it's a big deal.
Well, I think for forever, Ole Miss, really since Tommy Tuberville, they've been trying to pass by the Stepping Stone University allegations, but then this kind of debunks that, and they're going to, I think it just kind of established them as a B-tier school, whether they like it or not.
Well, I don't know. You've got Pete Golding is going to coach them through the playoffs. You got Joe Judge. I guess Joe is still there. He was former, coach of the Giants, quarterback coach. They've got it. What they've got to do is they've got to move on. I mean, if they let this stuff, fester, it'll wreck them. But I will say they're never going to be happy in Oxford again, going 7-5 or 8-4. Those days are over. 4 of the last 5 seasons, you've had double-digit wins, Oak. That's, again, significant.
Yeah, and that's really another area where I think Lane Kiffin not making a decision until this late kind of screwed Ole Miss, because they didn't really get to run a complete coaching search. And I think the players for this year, Pete Golding will be backed, but in terms of how I'd rate that higher, I'm not very high on it, and maybe some other people are, but I just don't think it's the best fit for him in terms of being a head coach.
Well,
can we just stop feeling sorry for Ole Miss for a second?
No, I'm not. I'm saying they're going to be they've
not
got
for
money.
You guys necessarily, but I'm just talking about. I went through this, or Gator fan went through this with Urban. When he left, I feel like we were a little further down the road to see what it's like to actually have a decade of how things could go wrong and how much a coach can matter and how much that culture can matter. So. I guess in a lot of when Urban left, there was all the controversy because he doesn't exit the right way.
Yeah.
And then I look over at Summerall and I see his presser, and he seems to have, everyone wants to give him a little bit more grace, but it's like when you're going from Tulane to Florida, it's a little bit more understandable, right? I think everybody in the locker room says, well, it's, he's leveling up. I think it's hard for Ole Miss fan to be like, well, that's a lateral move to us, right? He just left us because he left us. They make that emotional, I think, more than it is. And then Lane did he's just a natural troll. So that's like, that's just like having like a matchstick and gasoline. And I think that's what we saw. This will all settle, but a guy has a right to go, to another place. And I think he was probably handcuffed to what, Ole Miss didn't want him to leave, so they weren't going to make him all that easy to go, right? So I think he could have, should have, would have, but I don't think we'll ever know the true story to what really happened.
Well, also, you can put all this blame on Lane Kiffin, but it's not his fault. He leveled up in terms of his job field. If people take promotions in every other field, I don't know why we're bashing him for this when it's college football's fault. I mean, don't let the coaching hiring timeline be, right as the playoffs are starting. He can't really do anything about that. And I think if we could push all this till after the season, push the signing date after the season, the transfer portal till after the season, you kind of avoid all this. And this is not a scenario that's going to be a one-time thing. This will happen again.
Yeah, and before we go to Dudley, I'll say I really wish they would stop it, because the last 5 weeks of the college football season were about all this stuff. And it's what about the games being played? Dudley Dawson, Inside Arkansas, folks, follow him, Dead Sports, Dudley Eugene Dawson. He's from Balch, Arkansas, Newport. He's been covering the Hogs for nigh on to 40 years, as they say over here in Arkansas. You've been doing it, one of the best there is anywhere. Now you got a new coach, Ryan Silverfield. And I texted him and said, look for Dudley Dawson. I said, he needs to find you. You're a great person to talk with, and I hope you get to know him really well. I will say this. You'll get a lot of texts from him at 4:15 in the morning, about 4:30. He's in the office early. He's got twin 9-month-old daughters. So he's like, I got to go to work. It's just,
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, they're going to be answered at 4:16.
That's right.
Maybe 6:37, but yeah, I mean, he seems like a really nice guy, and he had a big time Monday in getting 4 in-state guys, which says, I've beaten the drum for so long that they needed to get these Arkansas kids needed to pay attention. Hey, he comes in, pays attention to them from one day, but he had been recruiting many of them at Memphis, and so it worked out well for him. They've I think 7 are in now, and rest of them are getting ready to sign, and he's off and running. Whether he was first choice, last choice, medium choice, he's the choice, and he's getting it done.
I've done a lot of research on that. Some of the greatest coaches ever were 4th and 5th and 6th choices. People just remember that. That's not insignificant. And as far as
I may have not been the best looking guy out there, the richest guy that my wife could have married, but I won the situation.
You won the sweepstakes.
Yeah,
damn right you did.
Outkicked my coverage, all that. So that's all that matters is who gets the job in the end.
That's right. And another thing too is Pete Cordelli sent me this a paragraph. It was incredible stuff about in-state recruiting in Arkansas because Pete coached there a couple of times. His brother played there. And I forwarded that to your new coach. And it's a guy that Pete coached who's like 27, 28 years old. And he goes, this guy would walk to coach in Fayetteville. So there's a lot of in-state people that are going to want to jump into it. Let's get Vince Ferrara, the sports animal up in Knoxville. You did not go through a coaching change. It's kind of like everybody in this show so far, new coach, except Georgia did not. That's not going to happen for a long time. But Vince, hope you're feeling better after the hip surgery. Been having a lively discussion about all the new coaches. Your takeaways from Tennessee, the way the game ended. And if Diego Pavia and Oakley and Dudley, I think you would agree, if Diego's not in New York in a tux or a black suit, which I like to wear versus a tux, if he's not there after what you saw Saturday, why have a Heisman Trophy dinner, Vince?
No, I agree. He should be there. Some Tennessee players were saying we knew how great he was, and others were like, oh, it was our mistakes. It was both, but he's an elite player, and he showed why. And Vanderbilt thoroughly outcoached Tennessee. Tennessee players didn't measure up to the want-to of Vanderbilt players. Just unacceptable for a lot of fans. They don't care what Vanderbilt's record is or how much they've improved. Former players said it all week leading up to the game. Fans feel that way. You just don't lose to Vanderbilt, period, regardless of who's good, who's not good. And so and then the way it played out was harder to take. Plus all the comments from Diego Pavia leading up that he ended up backing up and doing it at your place. And then, keeping their playoff hopes alive, all that kind of stuff. So it really was a pretty horrific way for fans to end their season. I mean, people have said, 8-4 is what the Vegas preseason line over under was 8.5. So it's not that different. That's what plenty of people probably thought they would finish. But as we often say when we evaluate those and we say how the season is going to go, well, it depends on how you get to that point and that win total. And yes, you check the box for Florida and Gainesville, but then that's forgotten now with the way the season ended. After they led 21-14 with 7:51 left to go in the first half, they were outscored 31-3. And it was the most rushing yards Tennessee has allowed to a team since 2017, I believe it was. Pavia dominated them, and his plays impact the entire team. It gives them motivation. It gives them energy and momentum on in all phases. They feed off of that. The program is completely different and invigorated. And Tennessee didn't have answers. They made mistakes. They just walked right into and grabbed the bait on the hook anytime Vanderbilt put it out there. Just didn't understand a lot of what we saw from Tennessee's standpoint. Just a rough way to end the season, Rob.
I know the guy's 33 years old, But it's been amazing, what he's done with this team, and I think clearly he has to wear the SEC sports or SEC shorts, get up with the crown and the cape if he gets to New York.
Mom will be there too. We know that, and there'll be cameras on her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think it's not only that just that Tennessee lost, because Vanderbilt is a good team, and we knew this was going to be a tough game for Tennessee. But it's how you lost, and you should never have 45 points dropped on you in Neyland, and especially if you're only putting up 24. And I think Tim Banks just kind of ran out of time in Knoxville, at least from the fans' perspective. Maybe you could speak on that a little bit more. Yeah. And speaking of Diego Pavia, I think he's solidified at least a trip to New York, and I think he has a decent chance to win the Heisman, depending on how the Big Ten championship goes.
Well, Oakley, you mentioned Tim Banks. Yeah, he's taken the most criticism. Josh Heupel's taken plenty too. Now, it's not the entire fan base, but there's plenty of people that were critical of Tim Banks, even over the last 2 years when their defenses were outstanding and as good as they got in the SEC. And then obviously going back to 2022, the last year was horrible. That year was horrible as well as this year. So you kind of you bookend. You have really, really bad defensive years and then 2 outstanding defensive years in between. So how do you judge that? We had former NFL linebacker and former Tennessee linebacker Kevin Simon on as my co-host this morning, as John was up in snowy Syracuse calling Tennessee basketball. And Kevin says, look, the Tennessee defense, Josh Heupel, he needs to have the same kind of reevaluation of how they do things on defense that he did for the offense. You got to evolve. I mean, they didn't have a spy on Diego Pavia for a good part of that game. How? Why? A lot of us didn't play the game would do that. It just didn't make sense. And I understand. Tim Banks knows a lot more football than a lot of us ever will. However, executing it with that knowledge and with your players and making those split second decisions, that's a different story. So the things have got to improve, whether he stays or not. There's got to be alterations to how they do things. I would expect staff changes, whether guys leave on their own. Josh Heupel has never fired. This is another thing Kevin said. Josh Heupel has never fired a coach in his coaching career. All the changes have been guys leaving on their own for other opportunities, and he had to fill those. Even going back to UCF, he hasn't fired coaches. So, will he do that? Is he willing to do that? Things have to improve and change. There's no doubt, because Tennessee, they lost 3 games at home this year. Oakley, you're talking about losing at Neyland Stadium, how can't give up 45. Tennessee lost 3 games at home this year. They had only lost 4 at Neyland Stadium in Josh Heupel's first 4 years, and you lose 3, including that Georgia game that still makes people mad and how they missed those opportunities. And then they finished 4-4 in SEC play. The 5 teams they beat have a combined SEC record of 5-27. Apologies to Dudley. You had nothing to do with it, but you know who's included in
Dudley, come on.
Hey, it's not me, and they take 8-4 up here and run out the door with it.
Hey, you think they wouldn't take that on the plains of Auburn? My God, the famine continues.
So you got to beat somebody. I mean, it was Arkansas, Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Florida. And then their overall record is bad too. The Syracuse ended up 3-9, and they lost their quarterback, and they had a horrible year. Their 2 group of 5s are New Mexico State and UAB. They were 4-8. The only team with a winning record they beat was FCS ETSU. So it just under Josh Heupel, that has gotten away from him. He was beating those elite teams, Alabama's and all that, but that has gotten away from him in the last year and a half.
Yeah. Oh,
say that the FCS. The little thing you said there.
Yeah, the only team with a winning record that Tennessee beat was ETSU. Out of the FCS level, they were 7-5.
WTF.
And if you can tell me the nickname of East Tennessee State University, Dudley, the next time I see you, I'll buy you a steamer pack of crystals.
Well, you better buy me a steamer pack anyway, but I can't do it.
The Buccaneers.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
You damn right. All right, Dudley, your takeaways from the press conference when Ryan Silverfield, who's from Jacksonville,
But he
Florida.
has it.
Oh yeah, it's Thursday.
Thursday at 1 o'clock.
Jim
Yeah.
McClellan, who's watching, is up in Fayetteville, said the press conference is not until tomorrow. So
Yeah. When he's done a really good job at the Hog Plus is kind of like the media arm of the University of Arkansas. They've done a really good job, and he's said a lot of great things, a lot of the right things you want to say. It sounds much better when you go out and get those 4 kids that he got Monday, and I think that has changed. There was so much vitriol been tossed on the internet. I know, surprising. On Sunday after they didn't get Alex Golesh and all this. But the thing I'll tell you is that this guy's either had this job for a while or knew he had a really good chance at getting his job because he'd been talking to these other kids, and they didn't just switch out of nowhere. And a couple of them used things like, "Well, yeah, he told me a couple weeks ago," So I think he was whether he was the first choice or the last choice or whatever. When he knew he had the opportunity, there's probably a few thoughts went through his mind about how he would do things, and he's off to a good start.
And one thing you're going to find out about Ryan Silverfield, he can talk to the money people. Golly, I mean, he is tight with the Smith family in Memphis, and tight with the he's a guy who could be a money manager for a big Wall Street deal. You get around him, I mean, he plans every second of every day. And Ryan Silverfield, we had him on the show about 2 months ago. And I got to know him through Dr. Hardgrave, who was at Arkansas for 17 years in the Walton College of Business, I might add. You're getting a guy, Ryan Silverfield, no one is going to outwork him and his staff. Dudley, Oakley and Dudley, I get confused. We're going to have to start calling you
One's
Vince.
Got hair, one's got a hat, man.
Vince Lee, Oakley, and Dudley. Yeah. Oak, I know you got exams coming up. You have to go to class. You have to go to class here. So your thoughts on all this stuff they just said, watching it. To me, you're a sophomore in college. The passion, obviously at Auburn, it's more of a morning stage. But the passion for college football is certainly there, isn't it?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that's never going to die, at least not in the South. Can't speak for up north. But I think, you see some mixed reviews among the Arkansas fan base on Mike Silverfield, because they had Golesh for a few seconds there. But Mike Silverfield is somebody who's going to come in.
It's Ryan Silverfield, yeah.
Sorry, Ryan Silverfield.
Okay.
Sorry, excuse me. Someone that's going to come in, change the culture, and he's going to win at all costs. And that's somebody people can get behind, and he's going to rally the troops. Like you said, you can get money behind him, and he'll get the fans involved at Arkansas. And, of course, you want to win some games, but if you have a coach you can rally around, that goes a long way.
Yeah, it does. Vince, you talked about Tennessee. Only 3 losses this year, only 4 in the previous 4 years.
4.
All right.
Oh, you're talking about at home. I'm sorry, at home.
Yeah, at home.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I got a lot of Tennessee friends. Audrey is my wife. A lot of them. What's the outlook? What are the immediate things you've got to address in the spring, in recruiting? What are you looking for to come out of spring practice? And as they say over in East Tennessee, and whatnot and such, whatever that means.
Well, a lot, because just like a lot of teams are going to be really transient, and they're going to be some because they have a new head coach. So there's going to be a lot of coming and going, but Tennessee's going to have bunch of guys hitting the portal, a bunch of guys opting out, going into their bowl game, making declarations for the NFL draft. They have their early signing period, as you guys know, started today. They're at, I believe, 18 guys that are in, including both of their 5 stars that were committed. So that's good news. Faison Brandon, the quarterback, and Tristan Keys, one of the top wide receivers in the country. So at least they got some of the big fish, and they were trying to flip some other guys. So we'll see what the signing class looks like. That's a focus. They're going to have to get better on the D-line or on defense altogether. But they're going to lose, I think, 5 guys to graduation, plus 2 reserves already hit the portal. And then the other guys coming back, just not a whole lot established this year. They were younger in their rotation and just didn't get as many snaps for some of those guys, and we just didn't learn enough about them. So they got to get older. Vanderbilt was, they got older fast. They haven't had as many 4-year guys or blue chip guys, but they almost had as many portal additions as they did signing class additions. And if Tennessee goes heavy with this freshman class, then they're not going to have as many spots in the portal, and there's holes to fill. They need older guys in, especially on that D line. The line of scrimmage, you need guys that are developed a little bit, because those positions take time for high school players. So, a lot of things to address. Secondary, they haven't been getting as elite of players. Guys, a bunch of young guys, but guys that weren't ready to play yet. So when guys went down, they didn't have enough of them. Now, Ty Redmond was an exception. So, the roster and the coaching staff, that's what people want to see. You're going to a 9-game SEC schedule. Tennessee schedule a lot harder than it was this year. I know they lost to 4, either college football playoff teams or teams just on the outside looking in. But man, Lane Kiffin is coming to town. Alex Golish in Auburn coming to town. Alabama, Texas. That Kentucky is the only light home game next year. So it's a very much more difficult schedule next year, and people are looking at Josh Heupel for some changes that give them some confidence going into next year.
You better come tailgate with us next year when Auburn comes to town.
I'm ready.
Yeah, it's going to be Mark Ham will be doing briskets, and James Crocker, one of his friends, guys. It's one of Audrey's closest. They all grew up in Collierville.
I know his mother, Betty.
That's right. James Crocker has 21 grills in his backyard. Wow. He has a grill fetish. It's not, and he cooks brisket for days at a time. So it'll be fun. All right, can we talk some basketball real quick, guys? We had so much fun on this show last year covering SEC basketball. We got a few minutes left. SEC ACC Challenge tonight. The Louisville Cardinals come to Bud Walton Discount Arena. You'll be there, Dudley. I know you will. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, obviously Louisville has really turned its program around really quickly. Number 6 in the country right now. Arkansas is number 25 with the losses to Duke and Michigan State, 2 pretty good teams. Yeah. This is a big game for them in terms of both perception and in terms of just getting enough confidence to know that you are one of these elite teams. I'm looking forward to watching the ball game. And it's interesting. Kenny Payne was the coach back then, and now he's there on the sideline with Arkansas. So that's kind of a dynamic that they're looking at. That and one thing I was going to add: Arkansas has led the country in one category in football in the past couple of years. It's not one that you want to. We'll see how it plays itself out this time, but they have had more players get into the transfer portal than any other college football team. And of course that means they brought a lot in as well, but that's just something I'm looking forward to seeing who stays and who goes.
Well, think about Ryan Silverfield this past year at Memphis, brought in 71 new players. That guy, he's good at evaluating. Vince, Rick Barnes, been at Tennessee a while. They just keep winning. They're always in the mix. Let's talk some Big Orange basketball.
Yeah, they always keep winning. You're right, overall, except for the last 2 games. They're on the 2-game losing streak after the 7-0 start. Really disappointing loss to Syracuse. It was their worst performance of the year. They didn't have one of their bigs that's really come on in JP Estrella. Tweaked his ankle in the Kansas game. Another game that Tennessee lost. Obviously Kansas is a good team. They'll probably be ranked for a good part of the year where they typically are. But, Tennessee, when they beat Houston, that was as impressive a game as I've seen anyone play this year, and how they were able to out-tough the bullies in Houston, which was an Elite 8 rematch from last year. And Tennessee came back. They checked so many boxes. They got so much experience, really showed the ceiling of this team, which is they could be the best team in basketball when they're putting it together and playing well. as a collective. Jacoby Gillespie, the transfer from Maryland, overall has been phenomenal. Been their best player. And then Nate Ament, the 5-star and third-ranked player in the signing class. He's been SEC Freshman of the Week 3 times already. But he's kind of going through some growing pains. He got some rough lessons against Kansas and didn't play well and turned the ball over 7 times last night in the loss to Syracuse. Rick Barnes a little frustrated with them and, some of what they do in practice and scout, not translating into games. So they didn't shoot well. They didn't have energy last night. So maybe that Houston game, as much as it showed what they can do in beating them, kind of maybe took some things out of them and given them some hard lessons that they haven't learned yet or haven't been able to kind of get out of that funk since that loss to Kansas. So we'll see. They get Illinois in Nashville at Bridgestone Arena this Saturday, see if they can have a bounce back and at least a little bit of time to recover after the comeback from snowy Syracuse.
Yeah, well, it's the Big Orange connection, man. The orange and the Big Orange. So yeah. I like that. All right, Dudley, press conferences tomorrow, Ryan Silverfield. By the way, I love the Christmas tree in the background.
The wife, the beautiful wife, Petra. It's got all kind of sports ornaments on it. The dog did take off running with the football ornament earlier.
Nice.
Well,
Tatum
went all the way. I mean, it was the longest run I've seen all year by an Arkansas dog or football player.
I like it. All right, what are a couple of questions you might be asking of Ryan Silverfield? And I'm not shocked that he already knew about those guys. He's in Memphis, and you're going to find this guy is a detail-driven guy. When you hear him speak, he's a great speaker. He'll come to a meeting. He will walk up to everyone in the room, shake their hand, and thank them for coming. And look you in the eye when he does it. And he will remember your name. It'll blow your mind.
There's a televised conversation with him and Coach Cal. And Coach Cal said, I hear you're really, good at the offense and, going to bring a lot of points and all that. And his response was, yeah, but we got to go get some defensive guys. And so that's the main thing. I think that people want to know who's going to be the defensive coordinator. How many defensive guys are you going to bring in? He's off to a good start getting the 2 best defensive linemen in Arkansas that were going to go to Arkansas and Oklahoma State, Ole Miss, Missouri. Yeah, he's got them going there. So, but I think everybody just wants to see what the staff looks like, and apparently he's been working on it for a while, or at least people have been calling him saying, if you get another job there at Arkansas, I'd like to come there. So, this thing, it just happened overnight.
Yeah. Vince, real quick, and we got to wrap. Have you seen a more improved team than the Georgia Bulldogs? Love what Mike White is doing in Clark County.
No, Georgia is off to a great start, and Dominic Wilkins his kid is on there, so it's exciting. So Tennessee ran into Carmelo Anthony's son at Syracuse as well, so love that legacy part of it. But yeah, Georgia off to a good start. Mike White, of course, Danny White, Tennessee AD's brother there, so always interesting when they're playing good ball. They should. There's no reason why Georgia is not outstanding at basketball and recruiting, and they do have some history there. The arena is not the best, but they are one of the surprises of the league early on.
All right, great stuff, man. We'll be doing it again next week. Both of y'all, appreciate it. Have a great day. Follow these people, folks. They're better than anything on national TV. Hey, Landers Ford is open every day of the week except Sunday. The day means more than the dollar. That's what they used to say at SAG's Big and Tall shop in West Memphis for over 100 years. Brad Bellamy's the general manager. Just ask for Brad. He'll walk you through the process, getting in a new vehicle, and the service department will pick you up round-trip transportation. They're right down the street from our good friends at Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. And remember, Hewlett & Dunn is open every day of the week through Christmas, Sundays 1 to 5, extended hours, 10 a.m., 6 p.m., Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 10 a.m., 7 p.m., Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and again, Sundays 1 to 5. Charles Hall, J.M. Huffman, Raven, Lydia, Laura Hall, Barber, Filson, the best-looking clothing and boots you'll find anywhere. You cannot beat Hewlett & Dunn, the best-dressed people in America. Shop at Hewlett & Dunn. Rumble Boxing, Union and McLean, how you fight's how you live. Get out there, put your dukes up. And remember, hempforpros.com. Hempforpros.com, the Lights Out Gummies. If you've got aches and pains. You want to get good sleep? Order these gummies. They work. They're legal in all 50 states. Our friend Dave Bartu. Hey, for executive producer Brendan Martin, best in the world, I'm Rob Browne. Thanks for watching. Most often we see the face of Christ, the least among us. Have a great day, everybody. See you tonight.